I'm David Kayumba. I'm born in a remote place of Uganda. Very remote indeed. When I grew up, we could hardly see a moving vehicle around our place. But I was born in a Christian home, a very peasant family. We reared cows and did subsistence farming. But this was a religious family. Every week we attended the church, and my father took religion seriously. And at times he hammered it into our lives with some seriousness. He wanted us to grow up Christians, fearing God and respecting God. And so my place of where I lived, it was not a place that had the luxuries that most people have. For example, I used to walk 7 kilometers going to school. That's my primary school. And this was barefooted walking. So that was 7 kilometers to school and 7 kilometers back home. Even my church, I used to go to a church in the same distance. But I loved church, and so I could never miss church. And so in my young age, during my young age, I used to love teaching. And in fact, in my church, I was chosen to lead children when I was still young. And so I grew up with a desire of one time standing on the pulpit and teach like the older people I used to see standing in front of us. And so you can say I started when I was young to learn to share Christ. And so when I grew up and I started getting to know things, my father at one time left the church in which I grew in. He left the church because he was angry. He was angry because the church I worshipped in, was a church which was serious about certain things that members are supposed to fulfill. For example, you have to fulfill the tithe goal that you have been given. They used to give goals to every member as a way of motivating them, or if you like, you can call it a kind of a competition. And so that time the harvest was bad. We had a storm that destroyed our garden and destroyed the crops. So my father was very angry that this God could not protect his family, his farm. And so when it came to fulfilling the goal, the tithe goal, my father was not among those who fulfilled it. And so I remember the church declared him as, among others, as one who is spiritually dead. And this became a very serious issue with my father, because he said, since I'm declared dead in spiritually, I will never go back to church. And we stopped going to church, and he demanded that we all stop going to church. Somehow I knew how to negotiate with my father. I negotiated my way to convince him to let me continue going to church. And in order to achieve this, I had to do some extra work. I loved going to church because I loved the music. I loved the way the church used to sing. And so I couldn't imagine living in a world where I'll never hear that music again. So my love for music kept me and made me able to negotiate my way. And my father allowed me. I kept on worshiping. But I had this problem with me, always to think that my father was declared spiritually dead. I didn't understand what it meant at that time, but of course it disturbed me. A few years after my father passed away, and when my father passed away, the church refused to conduct the funeral service. And so I tried to do it because everyone expected the Christian funeral service. So I did it. Well, this burden continued to haunt me. They wouldn't do the funeral for my father. They had declared him spiritually dead. All this disturbed me, and I wanted the real answers. How does someone become spiritually dead while he's still alive? And how do you refuse to conduct a service when we knew very well it was an opportunity to preach those who are still living? So this disturbed me for some time. And so when I grew up, I decided to go to seminary. I joined a Christian seminary, and I went with these questions. I wanted answers. During my seminary days, just after one semester, I took a trip to Botswana, that's an African country, where I went to do some selling of Christian books to raise my school fees. While I was there, maybe something I forgot to mention, while I was in the seminary, I met a professor who mentioned the name of Desmond Ford. And when he mentioned this name, he attached a lot of importance to this person in regard to the gospel. And it sounded as if what he mentioned about this man would actually provide some answers to my questions. Because I had never forgotten that I had been taught that it is possible for someone to be spiritually dead for failing to do certain works. And so when I reached into Botswana, while I was doing the selling of the Christian books, I was already aware of Desmond Ford, but I did not know much. So while I was there, I came across a magazine. In this magazine, which was very critical of Desmond Ford, there was an article where a statement by Desmond Ford was quoted. And this statement, I found jewels, something very, very great that touched my life. And this statement went like this: as long as a sinner declares his faith or her faith in the atonement of the cross, she or he is declared righteous. And this blessing continues to be his or hers as long as he or she believes, in spite of personal mistakes and failures. And so I am thankful that I found this magazine, although it was critical to Desmond Ford, because not only did I find these quotations, but I also found a way of connecting and finding Desmond Ford. So I went and made the photocopies of this article, and I kept it with me. And when I went back to my seminary, that's back in Uganda, I followed it up. I got the address and wrote to the ministry of Desmond Ford. That's Good News Unlimited. And I was I wanted to know more about what Desmond Ford has written. And in fact, I remember I wrote requesting for something old, some old books, especially a certain book that had been written about Daniel. Within a short time, I received a box. I just asked for one book, but I received several books. I remember these were different titles, but he sent me 3 of each title. And one of the book was Right with God Right Now. And so I went into these books. I started reading every detail that I could read. These books was just a new chapter to me. It was like a new school to me. And so I was so excited at that time that I had to bring these books to the attention of my fellow students, some of whom were struggling like me. And so these books, I managed to share them with my fellow students. And in fact, I used to work in the library, or the university library. And so while I was serving in the library, I also had my mobile library, because I kept a bag with me containing these books. And I would share these books with the students. I would give them a short time to read these books. And so within a short time, the university became aware that the forbidden books are read on the campus. And so I met some kind of opposition and some challenges. And also with these challenges, they even made me more resolved to wanting to share these books, because whenever I saw this opposition, I felt there was something important that was being hidden. And so when these books became, because people made photocopies of these books, and even our professor, the professor who had actually mentioned the name of Desmond Foy to me, became aware that the books are already on campus. So he was telling me, I think I should also get my books out. Since you have your books out, I should also bring mine out. He used to use these books, but in a way that he would hide them. I remember one time we were studying the book of Revelation. He was using these materials. We didn't know until we got these copies. That's when we discovered the materials we've been getting from our professor are from actual days. And so this movement started on campus. Several times I was threatened by the authorities. They were threatening to stop me from continuing my studies. But at the time I was crazy in a way that I was not afraid of being stopped. And actually I threatened the university. I said, if you dare threaten me, I'll take you to the human rights organization and question you. And so they gave me my freedom. And because I was in my senior year, I also took advantage of that. There are not many professors who would challenge me at that time, especially with these materials I had. And so the work went on, and it was during this time that the church authorities took some steps. And in fact, they resolved that the students who are reading these books, they will not be employed. And so I knew the risk that some people are getting into. And of course, I knew that was a risk on my part, but it didn't mean anything to me because I had found answers. I had now found the assurance that actually it's not what I do, but who. And this made a lot of sense to me. It answered most of my questions. And so I kept on promoting this work of the gospel. I know many of my fellow students went into trouble because of these books. And I know to this day, I remember last year when I went to Uganda, when I went to take these books, Jesus Only from Printery, I met several of those pastors who until now have never been allowed to work because they got hold of this gospel and they kept on standing for this gospel. Now, when I came to Belgium, this was a quick forward from my university experience, because from my university, when I graduated, I did not go into the employment because it was a sure deal that I would not get into employment with these messages of Ford, because I had already been labeled as a Fordist. Even when I offered my free service, they could not take it. Anyway, I went on and God directed my ways. Soon I found myself in Belgium. And soon after, I got in contact with with the Good News Unlimited through Pastor Eliezer. When I discussed with Pastor Eliezer discovered that while we were here in Belgium, we used to follow what's going on, Good News Unlimited. We used to watch the videos, the presentations of days, and we would translate these messages. Our smaller fellowship could listen to these messages, and that's how this work continued. And so I'm happy that Pastor Eliezer did something that GNU could not do before. There was a time before I came to Belgium, there was a time when we wanted to have some links with Good News Unlimited. But it seemed that Good News Unlimited had not yet opened to the outside world, maybe Africa especially, because there is no way anyone could know about Good News Unlimited in Africa. If you discover how I found my way to Good News Unlimited, it's because I was very consistent wanting to find out about days about Good News Unlimited. I remember there was a time when you contacted Good News Unlimited, and Good News Unlimited, I remember that time they referred us to some other ministries who are interested in helping other ministries come up in Africa. But GNU was kind of closed. But when I met Pastor Eli, it seemed the things had changed. He had all this whole vision of Good News Unlimited going everywhere. And so we started from that point of discussing how to share this good news with individuals, groups, and soon I was excited, and with the encouragement of Eli, I started contacting friends, some of whom had almost given up. So some of them started coming back to Good News Unlimited, looking at the website. Others have been able to get the audio messages, and so we started this movement of Good News Unlimited in Africa. Now, in Kenya, Good News Unlimited is talked about. In Tanzania, in Uganda, in Rwanda. In fact, this book, Jesus One, has gone to all these countries, including Malawi and Namibia, and who knows, it might extend to other countries beyond these ones. So, what started at the simple thing, at the simple inquiry of someone who is grappling with the questions, has gone to bless many other people. In fact, we have found out that many people have questions, probably more questions than I had. And we are finding answers from these simple messages and yet deep messages that are being provided by Good News Unlimited and the writings of Desmond Ford. For me, as an individual, I was greatly humbled by the attitude of Desmond Ford, by his resolve to stand for this gospel at greater risks. If you ask me why I put my life online, well knowing that I went to Botswana and other countries to look for money, selling Christian books to raise fees for you to pay for your seminary is not an easy thing, especially in Africa. But I did all this because I wanted to get into the ministry. Everyone, when he graduates, wants to be in the ministry, wants to get the employment. But it was during this time that I found this message, and this message made me look beyond employment. I started thinking about conviction. I started thinking about doing things because you have a conviction, even rejecting things because of a conviction. And all of this is happening because Desmond inspired me. Because I thought about his life, I thought about his career, I thought about what the leap of faith he took to stand for the message that was hidden from many of us. And so today, we can learn something from this kind of experiences of simple men who stand for something greater than we think and give all they can give. And so this is what GNU is doing. GNU has given this book for free, Jesus Only, for free. And now this book is going into thousands for free to different parts of Africa and other places in Europe and Asia. GNU is able now, at a great sacrifice, to send preachers from Australia to Africa. This is not something simple. This is a leap of faith. And this is what GNU has come to. And so I think GNU is going to be a lot more in Africa, because Africa for many years was left to prosperity preachers who are hoodwinking people, who are giving the messages that is not actually the true gospel. And our people are paying so much for this kind of messages. Now that GNU has stepped up, it has great challenges because it has to go to Africa. It has to go to many, many places of Africa, the villages in Africa, There are many places that have never been reached by this message. So Good News Unlimited has this great challenge, but it's a time for Africa. I'm glad that Africa, for now, can experience this message that they have never experienced before. So please, to GNU and all the lovers of GNU and the supporters of the Ministry of Days, keep on supporting GNU, because GNU has so much work to do in Africa. Don't give up. Don't give up. I'm sure you'll find a lot of more challenges. Things will not go as we have always planned, but it was never easy for Jesus himself. So with this Jesus message we have, with this gospel we have, we shall reach everywhere. So we have to go in faith, because GNU was built on faith. The founders, they made a leap of faith, and so it's going to continue to be a leap of faith that will take GNU to places we have never known before. As I mentioned earlier, there are many places in Africa where technology has never reached, probably will not reach in the coming 50 years. I can start from my own village, where I come from. A lot of things have not improved. So there are many people who have received books, Jesus only. There are many people who receive these books, but who will never be able to give us any feedback. Imagine giving about 20,000 books in many places, and do not get much feedback, because some people cannot access internet, cannot access the computers. Others don't even have to use the computers. And so, and these are people who badly need these messages, because these poor people, these not educated people, well, they are able to read, but they are not all that educated. They are not able to sometimes to defend themselves as regard to information. So some people will come and take advantage of these people. That's what prosperity people are doing, prosperity preachers. And so these are people who will never be able to send feedback to us. These are people who cannot even afford to buy postage stamps to be able to write a letter and send it to Good News Unlimited. So this means we are going to work with people, knowing that some of them will not give us feedback. There are other places, for example, where, like prisons. In the prisons, it's very hard to get feedback from these people. It's even hard to get a picture from these people. And yet these people also need to get these messages. There are countries also where people are not that free to communicate. Some will even be afraid to give their pictures because of the kind of governance that is in those countries. So these are challenges. And yet we have to go to these people. And so we have a challenge of training some people in different places to do some work for us. For example, these people we work with who take books to the people, they need us at least to be trained to know how to get feedback from people, if feedback that they can themselves maybe write. Well, it is going to be second-hand information, but at least they're able to get the stories from these people and write themselves these stories to us, translate them into languages we can understand, and send them back to us. Even there are challenges of transporting books to different localities. It's not easy to. You take books from our printer in Kenya, take them to Kampala, but you need to take these books to a distance of 300, 400 kilometers. So these are all challenges, but these are challenges that we have to deal with by faith. With a strong team the GNU has, with other teams we are building here and there in different parts of Africa and elsewhere, we're able to bridge this gap, in the communication gap. But we'll never always have much feedback as we should have. So I encourage every supporter of GNU, don't be discouraged when you don't get feedbacks. Whether the feedbacks from the radio programs that you are supporting, or the books we have distributed that you are supporting. If you don't get feedback, don't be discouraged. The work is being done in a very, very difficult places. One time you have the best feedback when you hear the voice, "Thank you, faithful servant." These people are here because you supported GNU. From my own experience and the experiences of many we have come across, many have been helped by what Good News Unlimited is doing through the printed work, through the radio programs. Many lives are being transformed. In fact, we are getting many people joining this network of evangelism as a result of the work of Jesus Only and Good News Unlimited. So the work is being done. It's spreading very fast. In fact, it has become, it's a snowball. It's going and going and going. So it's not stopping. So be encouraged. We are getting there. The work is being done. GNU has given me a very great opportunity and a great challenge of being a coordinator of evangelism for Europe and Africa. This is a great task that I always think about with a lot of humility. But it has also been an opportunity to me to feel that I can step in and do something where I am now and also in Africa. And so, because we are trying to use every opportunity we have, we are developing strategies of doing this work faster and more efficiently. And so we are organizing meetings with different people, churches and ministries. And in this coming year, we want to do more than what we have done before. We want to get into the villages of Africa, Kenya, Rwanda, and elsewhere to do evangelism. If you want to call it door-to-door evangelism. Because we want these meetings, with this door-to-door evangelism we are doing, we want them to culminate into big meetings. Big meetings we can hold in Uganda and in Kenya and in Rwanda. We are planning to have about 3 big meetings in Uganda. We are planning to have meetings in Kenya. We are also planning to have training for pastors and evangelists in Kenya and also in Rwanda. And so starting from now, we are going to be more busier than before because we are now going to villages. We want to make sure this work now goes beyond what we have been doing. We want to extend territories and do more than we have planned before. We want to make sure by the end of the year, we can have thousands of baptisms as a result of this work we're going to start. And so we're going to be more aggressive than before because there's no time to waste. And so myself, I'm going to be, in most cases, I'm going to be in Africa. I'm going to be in Uganda, I'm going to be in Rwanda, I'm going to be in Kenya, working with the teams to make sure the work we are doing will culminate in big stories and big successes. And we are sure God will work with us and will achieve this with you.